does anybody have any questions about the homework that you did for today or for Monday? So everybody's clear that you only had to do number 1, right? Of those 3 questions.
That
Yes.
was small.
And you know, and I will say, like every semester on the first assignment, this happens, right?
Really?
People do this, yes. I'm not entirely sure why, because I'm not really sure in what way do assignment 1 is unclear, but
It was just like, the header's just like assignments, and it's like,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, you're like, oh, assignment 1, do 1, 2, 3.
yeah, and you know, but yeah, like I'm giving you the specific number of the assignment I want you to do because I only want you to do that one.
Understood.
Yes. So for assignment 3 on page 68, right, we're going to practice how to do that today. Remember that you're only doing assignment 3. And I will give you an article to use as your subject, right? And so from that article, you're going to pick 1 paragraph to analyze, right? You're not going to try to cover the whole article. One of the big points that I want to try to make here in this course, that analysis is something that is better done on the local scale first rather than the global scale, right? It's better to closely examine something small before you try to make any points about the bigger piece, right? You want to examine the little parts and see what they're doing, and then think about how they fit together. We tend to rush to try to come to a conclusion about, like a big global conclusion about the whole piece that we're reading, right? Okay, so this is the gist of the entire reading. I want you to try to steer away from that and just focus on analyzing what's going on in 1 paragraph. So I also want you guys to read chapter 3 for next time. Now I know I've been hearing from students in my other section that there are some issues in the bookstore with the textbook.
Yeah.
Okay, so who still needs a copy? Okay, so remind me, and I will. Did I give you a PDF of chapter 2? Okay, I did not. Okay, so I will get you a PDF of chapter 2 and chapter 3. But yeah, apparently what they're doing is they're only keeping extremely limited inventory, and they seem to be expecting you to order the books several weeks in advance of the class online, which, you know, how do you know what books you need if you don't have the syllabus yet, especially because of the way they're arranging them, because they don't put them like...
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're right.
Can you tell I'm having a great morning?
It's like bad luck. It's probably the first name of the author. Or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Something
it's,
stupid.
yeah, everything's arranged by author's last name.
Yeah.
So you have to, like, if you don't have a syllabus with you, you have to go through everything, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
First world problems.
I know.
Right here.
Hey, you know, the fact that they're first world problems doesn't mean that they're not problems.
You're not wrong.
Okay, so I've put a quote from the potent philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson on the board up here. Have any of you seen this quote before? Is this familiar to anybody? Pardon?
I was trying to pronounce that word, sorry.
Hobgoblin.
Hobgoblin.
Yep.
What is it?
It's
What's
like
that
some
called?
mythical thing, like probably Lord of the Rings.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a
Harry
little,
Potter.
it's a little, like a little monster reading story. Yeah.
Hobgoblin?
Yep.
Have you ever seen Spiderwick Chronicles? Has anyone ever seen that? A hobgoblin is in
Why
Spiderwick
am I
Chronicles.
so
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, exactly. Hobgoblins are these little creatures. These little creatures out of folklore, right?
Yes.
And they're not particularly dangerous, but they're extremely annoying, typically, right? Right. The kinds of creatures that like break into a farmhouse and play tricks, and they spill the milk and they tie the cows' tails together.
Silly hobgoblin.
Things of that nature, right? So yeah, there's something that's more an impediment than a serious danger, right? But sit with a sentence for a second and just pick the words apart. Like, what do you think it means? if you're having trouble with the global, right, figuring out the whole sentence, right, then what should you do?
Word by word.
Word by word, yep. I'm not going to tell you all. You're going to have to figure it out.
I think you can change hobgoblin to like maybe the word annoyance.
Okay.
I don't know.
So the hobgoblin is something that pesters, right? Something that gets in the way. Something that's a pain in the ass. Okay. All right, so yeah, if we change hobgoblin to something like pest or annoyance or impediment, right? What other characteristic does the hobgoblin have that might be important?
They're little, right?
Yeah, they're little. They tend to be small, right? Good. Have you ever encountered a hobgoblin in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, my sister.
Have you ever encountered an actual hobgoblin in your day-to-day life?
Definitely not.
Yeah, why not?
Because they're not real.
Yeah, because they're not fucking real, right? They're imaginary. Okay, good. Keep going. What do you think is meant here by little minds?
Children,
Okay, why do you think children?
they have little minds.
Okay. If we're thinking on the level of the very, very literal, yes, small heads, small brains, right?
The unintelligent.
Yeah.
Or small-minded.
Yeah, small-minded. Ignorant. And I think, Trinity, you said children, but I think we can kind of like associate this with immaturity, right? With, minds that haven't grown. All right, good. Now, what about foolish consistency?
Constant childish behavior, or like immature behavior.
Okay. Yeah, we tend to associate foolishness with immaturity, right? What else do we associate with foolishness? What do we regard as foolish?
It's a trick. Yeah.
Pardon?
A trick.
Okay.
Trick. Sorry.
Stupid decision.
Okay, yeah. Immaturity, right? Stupidity. What else?
Like gullible almost.
Okay, gullible is also probably a good one here, right? Yeah, somebody who's foolish is somebody who is pretty easily led much of the time, right? Good. And then what about consistency?
Never changes.
Yeah. When someone's consistent, yeah, they're unchanging, right? The same day to day. So then what is a foolish consistency? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Good, Carmen, exactly, yes. A foolish consistency is an unchanging stupidity, right? Somebody who is just clinging on to being stupid, yeah. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. What does this mean?
Like being stuck in the same ways and you know they're wrong. And you know it's wrong, you're small-minded, and that's annoyance.
Exactly, yeah. The basic idea here, right, is that sticking to your guns no matter what happens, right?
Yeah.
Even when you've been proved wrong, is a mark of immaturity and of small-mindedness, right? And the fact that it uses the hobgoblin here, an imaginary creature, right? This is something that's all in your head. And this is something that can be changed, right? So the basic idea here, the thing that Emerson is advocating, is to be intellectually flexible, right? You know, is he saying that consistency on the whole is bad?
No. But when it's like immature.
Yeah, like if you're clinging to a belief that has been proved false, right? For the sake of being consistent, right? Then you're being small-minded and ignorant, right? So for example, you know, if you are clinging to the belief that the world is flat, and yes, I know that there is a flat Earth society, that there are people who believe, like, you know, we have always known the world is round, right? If you take nothing else from this class, remember this, that the idea that Columbus proved the world was round is actually false. The ancient Chinese knew the world was round. The ancient Greeks calculated the diameter of the Earth. And you can't calculate the diameter of something you don't think is round, right? So yeah, what Columbus actually demonstrated to people in Europe was that there was a continent on the other side of the Earth, right? The danger in sailing west from Europe was not believed to be that you would fall off the edge of the Earth. Nobody actually thought that. Nobody ever actually thought that. The actual danger was that you would run out of food and water before you reached Asia, right? That was what they believed would happen. But I digress. So just remember that, if nothing else, right? So what we've done here, right, is we have pulled out of each of the words in this sentence, right, not just the literal meaning of the word, but also a range of ideas associated with it, right? And this is how we do a lot of our best thinking, right? By remembering that words have two different kinds of meaning, right? On the one hand, right, we have denotation, which is the kind of literal dictionary definition of a word, right? But words also carry with them connotations, which are ideas suggested or implied by the word. And this is why specific word choice matters, because even words that refer to more or less the same thing will often have a different range of associations, right? So for example, if I take the words red and crimson, right? What is crimson?
Like a more burnt red.
Yeah, it's a shade of red, right? So it's a more specific shade of red, right? But it's one that is also often associated with blood and violence, right? In a way that the color we call simply red is not, right? So the word crimson carries these other associations with it. If I put up here the words grill and hibachi, right? So hibachi, by the way, is not a kind of food or kind of restaurant, right? It is specifically a small Japanese charcoal grill that those particular restaurants often cook on in front of you, right? So yeah, so hibachi has particular cultural connotations that the word grill does not, right? Even though hibachi is a grill. Now what about a rose? If I give you a word like rose, what is a rose? It's a flower, yeah, right? Break it down even more specifically. What is a rose?
A red flower.
Okay, usually red.
Could have like a meaning behind it.
Like a symbol of love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, we're getting to connotation now, right? We often associate the rose with romantic love, right? What else does a rose typically have, in addition to red flowers?
Thorns.
Thorns, yes. It is a red flower with nasty little thorns. They get stuck in your fingers. So yeah, so we associate the rose with romantic love, right? What other kinds of symbolic associations do we have with the rose?
I don't know if this is related, but Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I can think
I
about.
was in the bathroom.
Stop.
But yeah. I mean, so yeah, both of those, that film and that TV show are playing on our association of the rose with love, right? What other associations do we have with this plant?
Smells good.
Okay, yeah. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet, right?
Titanic.
Bro.
Oh yeah, right. The character is
Right.
Rose. Yeah. For some reason, I always want to call her Lily, and I don't know why. I guess just because it's another flower name. But let's, so we associate the rose with romantic love, right? We associate it with beauty. But it's also got those thorns, right? So what is the love and beauty symbolized by the rose often mixed with? Yeah, it's often mixed. If we're using the complex symbol, right? It's often mixed with pain or fear, right? And most words carry not just these one or two associations, but a whole range of them, right? So it's a good idea when you encounter a word that has this kind of symbolic resonance, right, to try to pick out as many possible connotations as you can and think about which ones make the most sense in this particular context, right? So we did a little bit of this with hobgoblin, right? That hobgoblin, on the one hand, literally is a small, annoying little creature, right? That gets in your way and trips you up. But it's also something that is imaginary and that is small, right? So the sort of thing that can be banished if your head is on straight. I'm going to give you a sheet with song lyrics on it. So this is an old country song from the early 70s. It's a John Prine song. Oh, you already got one?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
saw it up
You
there.
saw it up there and you grabbed it,
Yeah.
right? And what I would like you to do is just go slowly through the lyrics. And I want you to pick out words that have ambiguous meaning or that seem to carry a couple of different possible connotations, right? And, right, as always, just take your time. We're in no hurry.
While digesting Reader's Digest in the back of the dirty bookstore, a plastic flag with gum on the back fell out on the floor. Well, I picked it up and I ran outside, slapped it on the window shield. And if I could see old Betsy Ross, I'd tell her how good I feel. But your flag gal won't get you into heaven anymore. They're already overcrowded from your dirty little war. Now Jesus don't like killing, no matter what the reason's for. And your flag gal won't get you into heaven anymore. Well, I went to the bank this morning, and the cashier said to me, if you join the Christmas club, we'll give you 10 of them flags for free. Well, I didn't mess
We can write it.
around.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I took him up on what he said, and I stuck them stickers all over my car and one on my wife's forehead. But your flag gal won't get you into heaven anymore. They're already overcrowded from your dirty little war. Now Jesus don't like killing, no matter what the reason's for. And your flag gal won't get you into heaven anymore. Well, I got my window shields filled with flags I couldn't see. So I ran the car upside a curve, right into a tree. By the time they got a doctor down, I was already dead. And I'll never understand why the man standing in the pearly gate said, but your flag gal won't get you into heaven anymore. We're already overcrowded from your dirty little war. Now Jesus don't like killing, no matter what the reason's for. And your flag gal won't get you into heaven anymore.
how are we doing with this? Have we got a couple? Okay, what have you got?
Betsy Ross.
Okay. Why'd you zero in on Betsy Ross Henderson?
Because she's a historical figure.
Okay, historical figure. And what is she? What's she noted for?
Making the American flag.
Yeah, so, supposedly designed so the first American flag, right? So then what bigger idea is she associated with that might be relevant to the song?
United States. Kind of.
Okay, so to the U.S., right? And then to, what sorts of ideas does a flag usually represent? Okay, well,
The country's morals.
yeah, it represents a country, right? A flag is a symbol that represents a particular country, right? So yeah, so we tend to associate it, right, with patriotism, with love of country, right? Okay, what else did you zero in on? What's that? Okay, the idea of heaven, right? And why did you focus on that? Okay. And heaven is a term that's used specifically, typically in Christianity, right? Though there are other religions that have their own versions of the good afterlife, right? And I think that's the thing we need to, when we talk about heaven, we're talking about the afterlife, right? What's that?
I said, I'll put afterlife.
Yeah. Right, and right, the good afterlife, not the bad one, right? What else did you pick out of this?
Dirty Little War.
Okay. Why Dirty Little War? What did you get out of that?
Because like they're in the song, he's talking about how it won't get you into heaven because like it's all filled up. Is one of the reasons from a war.
Okay.
And I would assume it's probably like Civil War because that one's really bad.
Look at the date on the song.
Oh, JK. World War II or Vietnam.
Yeah, he's talking about Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam.
Yeah.
I
So
was thinking Betsy Ross.
the fact that he is calling this a dirty little war suggests that he thinks what about it? What do you mean by dirty?
He doesn't think that it should happen.
Yeah. So he thinks this war is wrong, right? Well, what do you think dirty means in this context?
Like sleazy.
Yeah, like sleazy, corrupt, right? Yeah. Good. Right. Impure motives. And why a little war? What does calling it a little war do?
Like
Makes it not seem so grand.
Yeah, it's like minimizing, right? You're gonna make it like this little petty, tiny war, right? That's killing so many people. All right, good. What else did you pull out of this? Now, is this the only time in the song he uses the word dirty, by the way?
He used it for the back of the dirty book.
Yeah, while digesting Reader's Digest in the back of a dirty bookstore. Now, what do we think dirty means in that context?
I think it's trying to make you picture it more because it's like the first line of the song too, so it's giving you that
Okay.
visual feel.
Yeah. So yeah, it could be purely descriptive, right? So we could simply be talking about a bookstore that's not clean, right? What else might he mean by this? Does anybody know what other connotation this carries?
Like, I feel like naughty, like, I don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. a dirty bookstore could also be an adult bookstore, right?
I didn't even think about that.
So yeah, so it's suggested that he is hanging out in the back of a porn shop reading Reader's Digest, right?
Okay, Reader's Digest, like what is that? I didn't even know what that
Okay, so yeah, readers, you guys might be a little young to know what Reader's Digest is. Okay, then this might be something that your grandparents read. My grandparents sure as hell did. So Reader's Digest was or is, I don't know if it still exists actually, a magazine. And what it did was kind of take and abridge articles from other magazines and from books and things like that, right? Into a format that was about yay big and was easily placed in the bathroom next to your toilet. It tended to have an older readership and it also leaned conservative. So he's reading a conservative magazine with a flag decal inside a porn shop, right? So it's meant to create a kind of contrast there. Now, I think part of what he's also trying to do there is set up a little verbal joke, right? Like while digesting Reader's Digest. Yeah, go ahead, Elena. Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, and yeah, if you need to leave the room for some reason, you don't have to ask. You can just go.
Where is it at?
Yeah, downstairs in the middle of the breezeway. Yep. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea of digesting Reader's Digest. Do we usually use digestion as a way to describe reading? Yeah, what do we associate with digesting?
Consuming.
Eating, consuming, right? Yeah. And we can probably pick out a strand of this sort if we look through the whole song, right? About consumption. Where do we see other references to consuming?
Gum. Like the bag of gums.
Oh, okay. Gum, and it means like spirit gum, like rubber cement. Yeah, it's just like a little sticky thing, so you can stick the flag onto something.
Maybe him like filled the shield, the window shield, the flags.
Okay. So he's just collecting these flags. Digesting is something we tend to do unthinkingly, right? It's an unconscious process. And yeah, he's just kind of unthinkingly collecting these flags and slapping them on his car, right? And then what problem does that cause for him? Yeah, he can't see through the windshield anymore, so he crashes into a tree and dies. So what's meant to be kind of the symbolic resonance of all this collection of flags and put them on his windshield? What is collecting all these flags done to him? Yeah, he's blinded by all the flags, right? And how might that play into the larger argument of the song, right? So he's going around, he's collecting all these flags. He gets one in a bookstore, right? Where does he get the rest of them from?
Like a bank.
Yeah, the bank, right? And he gets the flags at the bank in exchange for what?
Joining the Christmas club.
Yeah, joining the Christmas club. So this is another perhaps slightly dated reference. Do any of you all know what a Christmas club is?
Isn't it like you put $50 in it every month or something, and then they'll like give you some money around Christmas, and then you can like withdraw it for Christmas presents?
Yeah, it's something that local banks used to do. I don't think very many banks do this anymore, especially like since large corporations have taken over most of American banking. But yeah, it was like a kind of low interest checking account. You put a little bit of money in a month. And then at Christmas, was supposed to, you're supposed to have enough money to, to pay for presents, right? So that's the literal meaning of this, right? But if we pull these two words apart, Christmas and club, let's start with club. What's a club?
A group.
Yeah, it's a group, right? And a club is a club a group that is defined by inclusion or exclusion? Could be either, right? Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
including themselves but excluding others.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it is based on kind of selecting membership, right? Usually you have to do something to be part of a club, or share something with the other members, right? So it's a kind of shared identity. I realized after I asked that question it didn't really express what it was I was trying to get at. And then Christmas, we all know what Christmas is, right? Okay, yes. Early winter Christian holiday, right? Yes. So on the one hand, yeah, he's being asked to open this low interest checking account, right? But he is also being asked to join the Christmas club, right? That is, a group with a perhaps, shared Christian identity here, right? And if you do that, then we'll give you 10 of these little flag stickers. So what two ideas then are yoked together in joining the Christmas club in the bank? What two larger concepts does joining the Christmas club and getting the flags combine?
I guess like that it'll get you
A little louder, please.
I don't know, Christianity and maybe patriotism.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. So it's combining religion and nationalism. Yeah, exactly. And then what does he discover once he dies and gets up to the pearly gates? What's that? He can't get in, right? He's been excluded, right? Even though he joined the Christmas club.
Yeah.
And why is he being excluded? Yeah. So how do we interpret that?
Like, just because you're from a certain country and you have like Christian values or whatever
Mhm.
from that country, you shouldn't just be let into heaven for that reason. Like maybe he
Okay.
was just focusing on patriotism when he wasn't focused on his religion and practicing that.
Yeah, so does the songwriter seem to think that these two things actually really have that much to do with each other? In terms of actually getting you into heaven, right? The flag decal isn't your ticket, right?
No.
The flag decal doesn't get you in. So would it be fair to say that he seems to regard coupling these two things as a mistake? And what mistake does it seem to lead people, apart from the whole kind of blindness from covering up the windshield thing? Right? That's the literal mistake, right? But what mistake is represented by the dirty little war? Yeah, he's talking directly here about Vietnam, right?
And I guess I can go back to what it says, Jesus doesn't like killing.
Uh-huh.
So,
So that's just because we're fighting for the country to
Yeah, but there's a difference between, fighting a war for nationalistic reasons, right? That is not in and of itself inherently good, right?
yeah, you said Reader's Digest is conservative, right?
Reader's Digest tended to lean conservative, yeah.
So I guess like the conservative aspect, like they usually support wars for the most part. So
Yeah, and there does seem to be, and I do want to say too that I'm not picking on any particular political ideology by choosing this song. I'm picking it because it actually does kind of, it works well for this exercise, right? Because, it's easy to pick out the kinds of things that it's yoking together and the kinds of things it's critiquing, right? I think, there is a criticism of American conservatism and kind of pro-Vietnam boosterism circa 1970, right? And this is kind of where we're going to segue into the other thing I want to talk about today. So the song seems to imply that the Vietnam War is wrong, right? That it is unjustified. What does the songwriter seem to believe about war overall? Does he seem to believe that there is any such thing as a just war?
I'm saying that
Okay, why not?
because he says that Jesus doesn't like killing.
Yeah. Yeah, the lyric goes, Jesus don't like killing no matter what the reasons for, right? So the assumption underlying the song, right, or one of the basic assumptions underlying the song is that war cannot be justified, right? Or at least that it cannot be justified through Christian belief, right? The two things are he seems to regard the two things as incompatible, right? So one of the things that you need to try to get to the bottom of with anything that you're analyzing is what the author's underlying implied beliefs are, right? So the implied belief here is that you cannot use Christian belief to justify war, right? And he's applying that specifically to the situation of Vietnam. Now, I want to show you a short video. It's an old comedy sketch. And I want you to think about, in particular, the relationship between the two characters, right? And what assumptions we tend to make about that specific relationship, and how the sketch plays with that relationship, right? So, what is the role, right, the particular social role of each character? And what assumptions do we tend to make about these roles? And then we'll use that as a basis for breaking it down a little further. spend too much of my time waiting for the projector to work. Oh wait, I muted this.
Hello, I wish to register a complaint. Hello, miss? What do you mean, miss? Oh, sorry, I have a cold. I wish to make a complaint. Oh, sorry, we're closing for lunch. Never mind that, my lad. I wish to complain about this parrot. What I purchased not half an hour ago from this very boutique. Oh, yes, the Norwegian blue. What's wrong with it? I'll tell you what's wrong with it, my lad. It's dead. That's what's wrong with it. No, it's resting, look. Look, my lad, I know a dead parrot when I see one, and I'm looking at one right now. No, that's not dead, it's resting. Resting? Yeah, resting. Remarkable bird, the Norwegian blue, innit? Beautiful plumage. The plumage don't enter into it. It's stone dead. No, it's resting. All right then, if it's resting, I'll wake it up. Hello, Polly! I've got a nice fresh cuttlefish for you if you wake up, Mr. Polly Parrot! There he moved. No, you didn't. That was you pushing the cage. I didn't. Yes, you did. Hello, Polly! Wakey, wakey! Rise and shine! This is your 9 o'clock alarm call! Now that's what I call a dead parrot. No, he's stunned. Stunned? Yeah, you stunned him just as he was waking up. Norwegian blue stunned easily. Oh, my lord, I've had enough of this. That parrot is definitely deceased. And when I bought it not half an hour ago, you assured me that its total lack of movement was due to it being tired and shagged out after a long squawk. Well, he's pining for the fields. Pining for the fields? What kind of talk is that? Look, why did it fall flat on its back the moment I got it home? Oh, well, the Norwegian blue prefers keeping on its back. Beautiful plumage. Look, I took the liberty of examining that parrot. And I discovered that the only reason that it had been sitting on its perch in the first place was that it had been nailed there. Oh, well, of course it was nailed there. I mean, if I hadn't nailed it there, it would have muscled up those bars and boom! But yeah, mate. This parrot wouldn't boom if you put 4,000 volts through it. It's bleeding demise. No, it's pining. It's not pining. It's passed on. This parrot is no more. It has ceased to be. It's expired and gone to see its maker. This is a late parrot. It tastes bereft of life. It rests in peace. If you hadn't nailed it to the perch, it would be pushing up the daisy. It's rung down the curtain and joined the choir invisible. This is an ex-parrot. Well, I better replace it. If you want to get anything done in this country, you've got to complain to go blue in the mouth. Sorry, Squire, I've had a look. We're right out of parrots. I see. I get the picture. I've got a slug. Does it talk? Not really. Well, it's scarcely a replacement then, is it? Listen, I didn't want to work in a pet shop. I wanted to be a lumberjack. I'm sorry, this is irrelevant, isn't it? Yes! A lumberjack! Leaping from tree to tree as they float down the mighty rivers of British Columbia.
Okay. So, what are the two roles here that the characters occupy?
Stupid and stupid.
Okay.
Pet shop worker and mad pet owner.
Okay, yeah. So, pet shop worker, right, versus essentially a customer, right? And what do we tend to assume about the relationship between shopkeeper and customer?
The customer is always right.
The customer is always right, yes, exactly.
reading that into me.
You
I
can
know,
have it
yeah,
all.
if you've ever worked any kind of customer service job, this is what you are taught, right? The customer is always right. Even when the customer
It's
is
definitely
being,
not right.
yeah, is being abusive or kind of an asshole, right?
Yeah.
You have to keep the customer happy.
Not at Monroe's.
I just get to a point, I'm like, look, I got 8 other tables down there and it's hit me. I don't care
Mhm.
about you. Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
We got Miss Lavon back home. Get the hell out of my restaurant.
Where is this at?
Monroe's, I worked there for like a year and a half.
Mhm.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, like, we did not care about our customers. Like,
Uh-huh.
Ow.
See, I worked customer service online for about a year and a half for WeightWatchers.com.
Oh my God, I cannot.
And, you know, like essentially what I had to do was answer emails, mostly just telling people they weren't getting their money back. That was, you know, I wasn't not qualified to give diet and nutrition advice, things like that. But, you know, I always had to do so in such a way as to not make the customer angry, right?
Yeah.
But the basic assumption we have about this relationship is that the shopkeeper, the salesperson, is supposed to keep the customer happy, right? So what's actually happening in the sketch? How is it playing with this assumption?
He's trying to keep the
He doesn't think the worker's right, and the worker doesn't think the customer's right.
Well, does the shopkeeper actually think the parrot is alive?
I don't think, no.
He
He
just,
just, he just know he can't give him another one.
Yeah. He is doing everything he can to avoid having to give the customer his money back, right? Or replace the dead parrot. So he's resorting to all kinds of little tricks here, right? You know, he pushes the cage to make it move. You know, he makes up a whole lot of crap about Norwegian blue parrots, right?
The
And-
plumage.
the plumage, beautiful plumage, yes. And the fact that he calls the parrot a Norwegian blue itself should tell us he's full of shit, right? Do parrots live in Norway? No, parrots would freeze to death in Norway, right? Right, the parrot is not pining for the fjords, right? No, it is quite dead.
Yeah, you're right.
But he's doing whatever he can to deny this fact. Because if he admits the parrot is dead, right? Yeah, then he has to do something about it. So, one of the things that this sketch is doing, or the basic principle it operates on, is trying to overturn this basic cultural assumption, right? And it does so in a lot of ways by, like, as we talk about our past customer service jobs here, right? In a lot of ways, that's really how customer service usually actually works, right?
Yeah,
You're supposed to keep the customer happy,
yeah.
but you're supposed to keep them happy without actually giving them anything, right? What you're really trying to do is protect the company, not satisfy the customer. Right, you know, hence all the various polite ways I always had to try to get around giving people their money back, right? You know, well, if you read this very, very fine print in this tiny little codicil on the contract that you signed, you will see that we never have to give anyone their money back ever. Yeah. So let's try to break down these characters a little further and think about like how this is working out in practice here. Right? So what differences do we notice between the shopkeeper and the customer in the way they are presented here? You know, even like perhaps even in the way they talk.
The customer, I feel like he knows about birds, obviously, because he was like talking about like when he was trying to offer him a slug, he was like, "Does he talk?" and that kind of thing. So I guess he was
Okay.
looking for a bird. He likes
Okay.
birds.
However, what suggests that maybe the customer isn't all that knowledgeable?
Because he bought a parrot that was nailed to a freaking Compare.
He bought a parrot that was obviously dead, right? What other differences do, like, what else do we notice about the customer?
The way you dress.
Okay, what about it?
I would say it's more like classy than what the shopkeeper was wearing.
Okay. And what about his accent and his vocabulary?
Like British, kind of, sort of.
I mean, they both are, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But do they seem to be of the same, so, like, did they have the same kind of accent?
No, his is more like, I'm better than you kind of thing.
Yeah, the customer had a posher accent, right? And he does seem to have a pretty extensive vocabulary, right? He's able to come up with all of these creative synonyms for dead, right? Right, you know, he's run down the curtain and joined the choir invisible. I like that one particularly. Now, what about the shopkeeper?
He's trying to do the bare minimum.
Okay. Yeah, he is trying to do the bare minimum in all sorts of ways, right? Like when the guy first comes in, for example, what does the shopkeeper tell him?
I'm gonna let you.
Yeah, we're closing for lunch, right? I can't deal with you. So he tries very hard to not have to do anything at all, right? What else do we notice about the shopkeeper? As compared to the customer, maybe. Is there a way in which they're alike?
Well, then how did the parrot get to the store if it was like alive? So did he like get the dead parrot and then just nail it to the?
Yeah,
So
that's,
they like both like had the dead parrot at one point.
yeah. It's never really explained how he came into how the shopkeeper came into the possession of a dead parrot, right? But it is
Still
clear.
had the-
Pardon?
I said they still had like the parrot, the dead parrot.
Yeah, and it's clear that he knew it was dead, right?
Yeah, he nailed it.
That he knew he was he knew he was selling this guy a dead parrot.
Yeah, because he was saying like it was being lethargic and stuff. He
Uh-huh.
was just tired.
Yeah, so this guy is clearly kind of shady, right?
Sleep.
He also pretends to be knowledgeable about parrots, right?
Yeah. Putting on a front.
And what about his style of dress and his accent, his vocabulary?
He seemed younger to me. I don't know why, but he just seemed younger. The way he acted and the way he dressed.
Okay. What about his accent?
He talked faster, I want to say.
Yeah, he talked faster in part because he's trying to get one over on the other
Yeah.
guy, right?
Yeah.
And talking fast is often a sign that you are nervous, yeah. So yeah, he does come off as nervous, right? Which might be part of why you interpret him as younger. Right? And he ought to be nervous, right? You know, he sold the guy a dead parrot and he's trying to get away with it. Does his accent sound as sophisticated or as educated as the other guys? Yeah, it sounds a little more working class, right? And does he have the same skill with language as the other guy? He comes up with all kinds of creative excuses as to why the parrot is actually alive, right? But the number of words he uses is a lot smaller, right? He repeats himself a lot more. He keeps using the same words. So when we look at this in these terms, which of these two wins the argument? Why do you say the customer wins? What does the customer want? He wants a parrot, right? He wants a live parrot. Does he leave that store with a live parrot?
No, I don't think so. No, because old boy wanted to be a lumberjack.
Yeah, when it's clear that when it's clear to the shopkeeper he's losing the argument, he's going to have to do something, right? He just does a complete 180, right? Changes the subject, takes off his coat, and he's got his lumberjack gear on underneath it, right? And walks away. So, which of the two of them actually gets the better in this exchange? Yeah, the shopkeeper wins because he ends up not having to do anything. So we've already related this to our own experiences in customer service, right? And that, the customer is always right is more of a fantasy than a reality, right? That the customer is always right as long as they're not doing anything to inconvenience me or cost the company money. But there's something else I think going on here that's worth thinking about, in that we have our little working class shopkeeper with his relatively low class accent and small vocabulary, who manages to get one over on the supposedly smarter, more sophisticated customer, who was the dingus who bought a dead parrot in the first place. And the fact that he comes in and uses a lot of big fancy words, right, doesn't actually make him the smarter person here. Because the shopkeeper is able to thwart him at every turn. So we also have in this little sketch a kind of underdog victory narrative, right? On one level, it seems to want you to root for the shopkeeper because the customer is presented in a way that makes him a little unsympathetic, right? Especially if you're looking at this from the perspective of, say, like a more working class viewer, right? So this is what I want you doing with the article that I'm going to send you, right? So I want you to think about, based on the paragraph you're going to analyze, right, what the author seems to believe in that paragraph, right? And if they believe this, then what else must they believe, right? What other assumptions or ideas are underlying this? And one way we get there is through this kind of picking apart of patterns that we've been doing. We did it with the song. We did it with the Jonathan Swift thing last time. We did it by looking at the classroom, right? We're going to be using basically the same method to keep doing this, right? The whole idea here is to teach writing through teaching a particular way of thinking that is based on minute observation and finding and identifying and pulling meaning out of patterns. So does anybody have any questions about anything?
The local versus global thing, were you just saying that for look at it the whole way, but then look at it piece by piece, what we did with the quote?
Yeah, exactly. I want you, start, instead of trying to draw big conclusions about the whole thing that you're looking at, right? start small, start with little localized things, and then put those together to make meaning out of the big thing, right? We tend to read quickly to get through things as fast as we can and then just try to get the gist of it. I'm asking you to slow down and look at specific details rather than just reading for the gist, right? Okay, any other questions? Yes,
So
Carmen.
What we're writing on is what we think that the piece means, basically. Like, after analyzing it, we're writing on what we think, like, it's saying.
Well, yeah. I think what you're trying to pick apart is what assumptions are being made in that particular paragraph, right? If the author believes this, the thing he's arguing in this paragraph, what other things are implied that he believes, right?
Gotcha. That's for assignment 3.
Yep.
Gotcha. Sweet.
Yep. And there are, like, if you look in the textbook, there are also examples and models you can use to help you.
Wait, so are we just picking it apart, or are we actually like writing it out too?
Yeah, you are the 500 word piece is you're gonna write it up, right? You're
And
gonna write
that's
up
what
what
we
you
like, from what we pick apart.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
that's the ones.
Yep.